Welcome to episode 195 of the XS Noize Podcast, where we focus on in-depth interviews with musicians, artists, and people involved in the music industry. I'm your host, Mark Millar. Thanks for listening. In this episode, I speak to James Cox and Steve Goddard from Crows about their third studio album, Reason Enough. If you missed the previous episode, I spoke to Eddie Ryder and Mark Nevin from Fairground Attraction to talk about their first album in 35 years, Beautiful Happening. So check it out, and if you like the podcast, please subscribe on your favourite listening platform, give us a rating, and leave a comment. On Reason Enough, Crow's punk spirit remains intact. Sonically, they are more refined and cohesive than ever. It's the most mature Crows have ever sounded, and more melodic than what the four-piece have previously done. In this interview, James and Steve talk about writing and recording the album, upcoming live shows, and lots more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the XS Noize Podcast with James Cox and Steve Goddard from Crows. So hi James, hi Steve. Welcome to the XS Noize Podcast.
Hey,
hello.
Mark.
It's great to have you. I like to go back to the start with my guests. Can you remember the first band or artist that made you pay attention to music?
Steve, go on.
I'm trying to think, Deader, I don't know, actually being interested in music was probably I went to my first ever shows at Reading, I think it was 1999 or 1998, and I was about 9. Just turned 9. And my friend's mum and dad worked doing a lot of different stuff for the festivals in the UK at the time. And first band I saw there was Terror Vision. So that was the first band I ever saw live. And then I think The Offspring headlined. And it was that sort of stuff that actually first started making me actually be interested in music rather than just seeing it as a thing that was on the radio or whatever.
Yeah, I think my first gig was Machine Head at Newport Uni. And I remember it was a school night. I think it was a youth service trip. They shoved us all in the Midwest and took us down. And I remember that being I want to do this. This is cool. And I think I must have been about 14. Yeah, heavy intro into music.
You've released your third album, Reason Enough. It's absolutely excellent. And James, you described the record. You said we're doing the same thing, but a lot better. This is Crows in high definition.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard with those press releases because, again, we're on the third album now. So we can't just make the same record. We've got to do something at least a little bit different. And I feel we took quite a while to write this one so we could experiment with different types of songs. And we wrote a lot more for this album than we usually do. So there were a few tracks that didn't really make it onto the record that maybe strayed a bit too far from what you would equate to a Crows album. But I think, the HD thing is more in reference to the way we recorded it and with the production side of it and how it's not so drenched in reverb and a bit more lo-fi. It's quite reeled off all the classic tropes of a Crows record, which would be lots of delay and reverb, which I think was just a choice we wanted to make with this record. And I think it paid off, thankfully. It was a bit of a gamble, but I think we're both pretty happy with how it came out.
This album, it sounds a lot more melodic than your previous albums. The band has definitely moved on musically.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of, I think there's moments, I think, in the last record, there's certain little sections where things were quite melodic, but they for the most part, the songs were pretty full on, more kind of what we're sort of just about as a band. Whereas with this one, it was just kind of, it wasn't really, I mean, we discussed it, but we didn't really set out for it to be that. But as the first few things that we were writing just sort of naturally just took that progression, and we're like, oh, actually, this is a bit more interesting, and it's what maybe is needed for the rest of the album, just so it keeps it something different and not just a repeat of the last two. But I think it's fair to say it's pretty more melodic anyway, for sure.
Yeah, I'm singing like a bird.
Yeah, you sound great. But you had to fit the recording of the album around working full-time jobs. which lots of bands have to do these days. You know, people don't realize how many bands have full-time jobs these days. It's not like what it was like in the 80s and 90s, because there's not much money around. So how did you find that?
It's always been a thing for us. Obviously, like, I mean, third record in, it's not like we've gone back to work full-time jobs. We've always been doing it. Yeah, it can be pretty hard. I mean, I'm probably the most flexible with everyone. I work for my family's business, which is selling nuts and bolts, and it's about as interesting as that sounds. But yeah, for me, it's pretty easy to just move things around. But with some of the other lads, it's quite hard. Like for Sam and Jit, I mean, Jit's got it's her birthday tomorrow, isn't it? I think he's got a 4-year-old kid, so that also is another thing that we have to consider when we're doing things. I mean, like this tour that we've got coming up for the record, it's mainly over like sort of tail ends of the week and weekends, just because it's easier with everybody with work and also, you know, child rearing. But yeah, it's something we've always had to do, but which is unfortunate. But you know, you have to just make do.
Yeah, it's just kind of part of it now. I think it does keep your interest in it quite a bit because, again, you're working all week and you're like, I'm going to go play a couple of gigs over the weekend, or I'm away for a week touring and I'm going to be off in France or Switzerland or the Netherlands or anywhere. It does make you look forward to quite a lot. It's like, oh yeah, I'm not going to be awake Thursdays. I'm going to be on the road with my mates playing a gig somewhere I've never been before. So it makes you less jaded, I guess, to touring, which some touring bands can get, I think, when you're on tour all of the time. But then the flip side of that is we're not doing it all the time because you've got to get to that next stage, you have to do it all the time. And it's difficult for like a mid-level band like us to like get over that tipping point of doing it full time, because we'd have to be touring probably about 11 months out of the year to be able to make it a full-time job, which is hard. So yeah, it's tough. It's a difficult one.
Yeah, it must be hard fitting around, you know, writing and recording, touring, and doing the jobs, you know, definitely.
Yeah, a lot of juggling, but we make it work.
Yeah, and I think it's like what James is saying. It's almost like it's a different avenue and a bit of a relief to the sort of the mundanity of the other stuff. So that's is that even a word, mundanity?
You just invented it.
You know, just make words as I go along. But yeah, no, it is always like something to look forward to, and especially with the touring and stuff, we're always keen to go away and play to people. So yeah.
Well, this record was produced by Andy Sabers. What did he bring to the sessions?
No, Andy's great. He's we basically just went through a bunch of different producers and things on Discogs and stuff like that, and we were looking at people that we wanted potentially to work with. Like we did the last two, pretty much every record we've done with a guy called Phil Brillo and Felix Rashman, who are good friends of ours. Phil used to do front of house for us for a long time. He now lives in Sweden though, so it's not as easy for him. Yeah, we were, again, working with Andy was like, we wanted to work with somebody different just because, again, we felt like that would lend itself to the record being different from the others. But yeah, Andy's really cool, really easy to work with. We met him once before the sessions, like went for a drink all together, and yeah, he's just an easygoing guy. He's easy to work with. But yeah, his style of how he likes to actually produce is a little different to what we were used to, because like those other records that we've done are all very like live records, really. And right, like, yeah, I mean, instrumentation wise, it's all very live. And then obviously we do overdubs and things like that and redo vocals and things like that. But with Andy's, it was more kind of like a building. He likes to like layer things and build things up. And when we first started getting going, because he basically, for me with Guitar World, it was like, just get like this one overall tone and run that through everything. And at first I was like, yeah, I'm not sure how this is going to sound. Like, it sounds really like kind of alien to me. But yeah, as it went on, it was very easy to see what he likes to do and how it works in that sense. And yeah, it's just a different way of working for us. Lots of takes. which normally we were kind of, everything else we'd done, again, with it all being very live, it was kind of, we'd do like maybe about like 5 takes usually, and then sort of move on. But with Andy, it was kind of like some of them we did like, I don't know, like 30 takes or something like that. But he's like a real like prolific sort of mad scientist-y kind of worker with his like way that he sort of matches things up and takes the best bits of certain things and going through it all. And yeah, it's very interesting to work with somebody different and who's as prolific and interesting as Andy is.
Lyrically, your songs often deal with darker or intense themes. Where do you draw inspiration from when writing these kind of lyrics, and how do they reflect your personal experiences?
Yeah, that kind of comes. I mean, inspiration comes whenever it comes. I quite often, with the way we write, is like that we write all the music first, and I'll be singing like random melodies over the top with like gibberish, and then I've got like books and banks and notes in my phone of lyrics of like one-liners that I'll hear somewhere or like I'll think of randomly, wake up and write down. And then when it comes to doing lyrics and stuff, then I'll be singing the melody and I'll be looking at what we got. And I'll quite often just choose like one line. I'm like, okay, that kind of fits there like that, and then I'll build a song usually from the one line, maybe incorporating some other ones if they're relevant. But to be honest, that's the kind of the way I do it. I'll have a line that fits to one of the melody hooks, and then I'll build from there. And then the darker side of it, it's just, I think I've just always been interested in darker writing with what I read, Cormac McCarthy, authors like that. It's just kind of, yeah, the music wouldn't really fit if I was just singing about loads of really happy clappy stuff. And also, it's much easier to write a sad song than it is a happy song, I reckon. So, yeah, pretty simple. But
I suppose the album was recorded in a former Catholic church and convent in the church's crypt, so I'm sure that's certainly added to the dark vibe of the record.
Yeah, definitely. It was
We wrote it in there. We recorded somewhere over here in London, but it was the writing process. The majority of it was written there as a basically like, yeah, again with the working jobs and stuff. We normally rehearse like on a Tuesday night after work, and and then do weekends and things and other times where we can just fit it in. But like those are the kind of set times, and it was getting to a point where we were like, okay, this is actually becoming quite like uninspiring to write in this way. So we booked some time off. Went to Stroud again with Jit and his kid. It's close to where his mum lives, so we dropped his kid off with his mum, and then we were set up in the crypt of this church, former church, and convent, and it was just pretty spooky at times, but it was a good place to write.
It was deep midwinter as well, so we'd go in.
Yeah, it's super cold.
It was raining, and then we'd come out, and it would be dark and raining the whole time. So yeah, it was apt setting for writing for Crow's record for sure.
I just remember it was in the midst of that Qatar World Cup as well that we were there. And Stroud, I mean, I don't know if you know Stroud. Stroud's not a very big place, but like we were like, oh, and I think we wanted to watch. It was England versus USA. And the only place we could find with space was like they had TVs outside. It was absolutely freezing.
There's so many great songs on the album. Let's talk about some of them. The album kicks off with the title track, "Reason Enough." What can you tell me about that?
It was one of the earlier ones. I think we'd had that pre-Stroud. That was a London one. Yeah, it just kind of came about just quite naturally. Like me and Jit don't normally ever do like different tunings. We normally play in like just standard tuning. But we were like, oh, let's try some stuff in a different tuning and stuff and see how it comes. Yeah. And it just came about like quite sort of naturally really after that. But yeah, it's very, it's the only one that is in a different tuning really. Everything else, again, going back to what you were asking about Andy before, like that was one of the good things that he kind of moved us in a direction with, was that some songs he'd be like, it's not the best kind of range for James and stuff, like the key that we're in, and he would like be like, why don't you try it like a semitone higher or lower, and yeah, subsequently I've got like a few where I have to play with a capo on the guitar, which I don't really like doing, but it's something I've had to get used to. But like it's Yeah, Reason Enough's the only one that's in an actual different tuning, though. For me, anyway. I think Jit has to tune up for one or two. But
I think with this record, we really wanted to have more dynamic. I think that was the main focus going in, because the last few we feel didn't have a huge amount of dynamics. So we were like, all right, let's keep dynamic in the back of our heads the whole time if we're writing, whilst we're writing this record. And that's the kind of obvious one where, like, yeah, it's quite slow, chill in the verses, big chorus, back down, slow and chill, and then a big ending. So yeah, that was definitely in our minds when we were writing that one.
Yeah, the first track from the album which caught my attention was the first single, actually, Bored. And I love as well with your singles you released so far, the videos, they're all sort of relate to each other, which is quite clever. And
thanks, man.
yeah,
Bored again came out pretty quickly. We want like a fast. I can't remember what the idea was that kicked that one off. I think was it riff.
That was one in Stroud. That was like, yeah, just. I think it got to a point where we basically, like, with those sessions that we did in Stroud, we were kind of like, let's not try and get too bogged down in trying to create the entire songs of things. We were like, I'd do at least like a verse chorus. If there's a break or a middle that comes naturally, then fine, but let's at least get like verse chorus kind of stuff. And with Bored, I think, because it's like, it's only just over 2 minutes long or whatever. That was one of those, I think, where it's like we just started playing what I was playing, and it was just kind of like just throwing in the little bends for like the chorus bits.
Oh yeah.
And the verses, like the guitar part for the verses, for a while I was playing that like during sound checks, and it was just, and because I was like, oh, it sounds quite cool. It's something I want to keep in my mind. So I used to do that for my guitar sound checks. But yeah, so it just kind of naturally came about quite quickly. And then I think we did the middle in that session. I'm not sure, but like, I mean, that song's very verse chorus, break, chorus, end. But which seems to be like that
classic.
Yeah, that was kind of the thing. But we looked at that one. We were like, maybe we could add another section. We were like, it doesn't really need it. I think it should be better and more impactful to just be a quick sort of short blast thing. But like, that's kind of like what we've done a lot of before. So everything else, we were like, let's try and sit with a bit longer.
My favorite track on the album is Land of the Rose. It says in the press it's about being boarded by shit and the relentless news cycle.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. No, I think that came a lot, especially after all the Sarah Everard stuff. I was feeling very much forgotten, and that no one really gave a fuck about. I mean, kind of everyone, not even just our generation. It was more like I was like, they really felt like the government at the time could just really do anything they wanted, and they didn't care. There was no second thought. No, like, oh, we're probably going to have a bad reaction to this, but whatever. And there was a few instances where that was over and over and over and over again, where I was like, wow, they really don't care anymore. They're just going to do whatever they want. No one's going to give a fuck. No one's going to hold them to account. And yeah, it just came really easily. And then I wanted to be slightly more poetic, so I was like, what can I call it? And Land of the Rose. Because I guess it does happen in Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland as well, but I feel like England is the epicenter of where the shit mainly goes down. And I live in England. I've lived in England for 16 years now. It's funny bit about that song is the outro. When we first wrote it, we were like, this cool, this melody line sounds a bit like something, and we were like, kind of sounds like We Are the Cheeky Girls. So it had a working title of Cheeky Girls for a long time. And I think probably only us will find that funny, but whenever we write on the set list, we're like, cheekies. And yeah, I think that's the only time we've actually spoken about this. So that's an exclusive for XS Noize.
I accidentally seen the Cheeky Girls live by accident. We were obviously by accident one night. I was in a club and they happened to be miming a song.
Sick.
Yeah, it didn't stay long. What are your personal favorite tracks from the album, and how did they hold a special place for you both?
Favorite tracks. I really like Vision of Me and Liberties. Just for me, I think they're like two of the more fun ones to play. I mean, they're all, but like, yeah, I mean, that's not. I mean, I find them all fun to play, but like those particularly, like there's So the outro riffs in Vision is really like one that I'm always like quite. It just feels a bit satisfying for me to play. And then the riff in Living on My Knees again. That was one that we came up with actually whilst we were in the middle of the previous album tour. That riff, like I just started playing it like in a sound check, and Sam started playing along with me. And I think we're in Paradiso in Amsterdam, and then yeah, I mean it's like it's quite bouncy and like sort of just physically for me to play. It's quite fun.
Yeah, so Living on My Knees is my favorite, just because it's really fun to play. It's kind of one of those builders where it's in like 3 parts. It's kind of, it's not verse, chorus. It's like a slow build, and then it ends really huge with like, and Jit's backing vocals are great on that as well. And that's like a song that, again, the lyrics to, I changed whilst we were in the studio, because I really wasn't happy with the original set. Not like a huge amount, but enough for me to be like, wow, okay, I'm glad I changed the lyrics because they're way better now than they were. Yeah, Living on My Knees, sure.
The band have released two studio albums prior to Reason Enough. Can you tell me briefly what comes into your head when I mention each one? So we'll obviously start off with Silver Tongues.
Fucking ages ago. It feels like so long ago since we released that fucking album. And their songs as well, especially those songs, because again, Silver Tongues was more of a collection of songs we wrote over about 5 years for like the debut album. Like, because we released like 2 EPs whilst on the lead up to that. And there are some tracks from those EPs on that album. But it wasn't like we wrote that album as an album. I feel like that was much more like, here are all the songs we have, which ones are going to go on to it, which ones are the best ones to go onto a debut album. So that one feels a bit more like a compilation to me, personally. That's what I think. But
yeah, I'd agree with the compilation-y side elements of it, but it was very fine. It was very satisfying to finally get an actual LP out, because we'd held back for a long time, just trying to get like the right sort of backing and the right labels to release with and things like that. And we nearly signed with one, and it didn't work out. And yeah, everything just kept getting delayed with it. So it was just a big relief finally to have an LP out.
Best of pros, best of the early years.
And obviously Beware Believers, which obviously there was a delay in releasing that as well, wasn't there?
Yeah. COVID.
COVID with that one. Yeah, because of the what we were just saying with Silver Tongues being like such a slog to actually get out. We were very aware of like trying to do something quickly off the back of it. So I think that when Silver Tongues I think came out, it was in the April 2019, end of April or something like that.
Yeah,
and then we actually had Beware Believers like pretty much finished recording in February 2020, and then we were supposed to be going out to South by for in Texas, South by Southwest, and then about a week before we were due to fly out was when everything started shutting down for lockdowns and stuff. And we discussed the idea of putting it out whilst we weren't able to tour, and then like we were just like everyone was we all loved the song so much that we felt it would be a shame to like put it out and not be able to tour it, which is why we ultimately decided to hold back on that. But yeah, it ended up being like 2 years late.
Yeah, it happened to loads of bands, didn't it?
Yeah. The other thing, like, yeah, we saw a few friends, bands and things that did still release, and like they kind of got it's the kind of thing of like they're in the news cycle of like, you know, people for sort of like the month that it came out, and then beyond that it was kind of like it's done. So we were like, we didn't really want to do that. We wanted to give it a bit of longevity with the touring and stuff. So
I'm going to put you both on the spot here. If people want to understand the music of Crows, what are the 6 songs they should listen to? So you could have 3 each.
Oh, Crow songs or other people's songs?
Your songs. If people want to make a playlist of 6 Crows songs, what has to be on that playlist?
Oh, that's tough. It's good though. It's a good question.
From the new one, I think Vision of Me and Living on My Knees.
Yeah, I'd throw in. I'm going to say Silver Tongues, but we all are so sick to death of that song that we've now done. Actually, this tour coming up is going to be the first tour that we've not played it, I think, because we've just decided like we've done it to death, and like we tried to move it around in the set list before, and it doesn't work anywhere else other than like opening a set. So we're all like, okay, let's not do that this time. But I do think it is very, very like kind of sums up what sort of we're about as a band, really. Like the slow sort of build and the moodiness, and the guitars are quite like aggressive and wide in places and stuff like that. And I think it's just like a good overall kind of thing of crazy. And also it's like one of the first songs we ever wrote as a band. I would also go for, God, it's a tough question. Maybe Room 156. Again, I think that's a good overall kind of reference for us as a band. It's got kind of all the elements of everything that we're sort of about. The moodiness, the darkness, the big sort of heavy drums with like, you know, thundery bass, and then sort of like a bit of a wider, more aggressive like guitar sound. All right.
We got one more each. One more.
Okay. What else are you going for?
I think I was going to say Silhouette, which is off the new album, because I feel like that is a good combination of old Crows and new Crows, where we've got the dynamic in there. It's me moaning about getting older, and it's just a cool bass. It's good bass line, big chorus, and I do like a fun bit with my voice at the end, which I like. So, totally personal there. Singing like a bird. I told you.
Yeah, I guess I'll go for Bored as the other one as well. I think just because it's kind of, there's other songs that do similar things that we have, but I just think as it's the newest and one of the singles, we'll throw that in there. But it's the more kind of punky side of Crows, and I think it sums it up very well.
Well, you mentioned touring. Crows will tour the UK and Europe from October to November this year. So what role do live performances play in shaping your music? Have any songs evolved differently on stage than they do in the studio?
Playing them live is always a good test of, or like, especially playing them in a venue, even if it's in soundcheck, or like if you're trying out a new song live, it's definitely makes you read a song a bit different when you're writing it, because we're very much a live band, touring band, and we spend ages in the studio writing a song. As soon as we play it in a big room or in front of people, or even just in soundcheck, we're like, oh, it sounds completely different, and it sounds either shit or really good. So it can quite often be the test and the decider whether it's going to be a keeper or not.
Yeah, I think with just trying to think if there's any new ones. Oh, I mean, Living on My Knees, there's a section of this where there'll be things where we play them live, and you just think like, actually, you could probably like drag that out a little bit longer in these like certain sections. Whereas like on a record, it needs to be a bit snappier. So Chain of Being's the other good example as well. Like there's like the middle eight, and that one is like, it goes on way longer live, and like, so depending on like, you know, vibe of like the show and stuff like that, sometimes it goes on for, you know, that section can go on for like a minute or two on its own, whereas on the record I think it's only for like 30 seconds or something like that. And Living on My Knees, there's like the break before the last chorus into the intro is only 2 reps on the recording, but we're doing like that for like 4, just in stuff like that. It's just like whilst doing it, it's just like those kind of things. It just feels like sometimes it can feel a little rushed, and we're like, maybe we should give it a bit more kind of room to breathe and for people to kind of really get in the mood with.
How much are you looking forward to getting out on the road?
Yeah, a lot. It's we didn't do this summer wasn't crazy busy for us because it's just sort of out of cycle in between the records. So yeah, it's nice to actually be like, I mean, we did a bunch, but like not that much, like comparatively to what we normally would. But yeah, just excited to actually be able to go some places that we really like playing and get to go back again.
Yeah, it's gonna be like, we haven't done a UK tour for a long time either, so it's gonna be nice to do some shows in the UK. We play in Europe way more normally, so it's gonna be nice to do a proper UK run for the first time in a while.
And James, you recorded the track "This Holding Pattern" with Rob Marshall for his latest Humanist album, "On the Edge of a Lost and Lonely World." It's a brilliant track. So, how did you get involved with Rob?
Thanks, man. That was so we Crows played a gig down in a place called St Leonard's on the south coast of England in a little venue called the Piper. Rob couldn't make the show, but he saw that we were playing, and I think his manager was like, "Oh, you should," because it's the whole project is a collaboration thing. He writes all the music and then gets vocalists to collaborate with him. And I think his manager was like, "You should get James from Crows, to do a song with you." And he reached out. He sent me a few tracks, and I liked that one the most. And yeah, that was it. He's a fucking lovely guy, amazing talent, really, really great songwriter. Then he asked if I wanted to do the live stuff, so ended up touring with Depeche Mode, fucking Jane's Addiction. Yeah, it was pretty mad. That was all at the beginning of the year. But yeah, lovely guy. Now call him a really good friend. Hopefully, probably gonna do some more stuff in the future if we both have the time. Yeah, really good guy. Lovely, lovely man.
Just a few more questions, guys. I like to ask my guests the following questions.
Mhm.
For us music fans, music is the soundtrack to our memories. What song or album, when you listen to it, brings back the best memories for you?
Good question. Best memories. God.
There's that. What's that OC's record with the white cover? Defeated Mutilator. What's that one called?
I can't remember what it's called. I know what you mean though.
Annihilated Mutilator. What's it?
Something like that.
I know. Well, actually, no, either the first couple of OC's album, Help as well. They really remind me of when we first were like starting to tour and like first starting to go to Europe. Our first gig in the Netherlands, which were like early on, and it's just really fun. That's when it was just like pure fun garage rock album, and it just reminds me of getting really pissed in the van, smoking loads of weed, and having a good time. When we had no cares in the world, we were in our early 20s. Long, long time ago. Just a simpler time. Those two albums good.
That's a good answer. Yeah, like some of those really early King Gizzard records at that point as well. We used to listen to that song Vegemite a lot in the van, which is a really silly song, which I don't think they ever play at all anymore. But yeah, that harks back to that kind of time of just being excited to go out and tour for the first times and
go to a country where weed is legal. Being able to walk into a shop. Very cool. Very cool to a young, impressionable band.
Yeah.
King Gizzard seemed to bring out an album every week.
Yeah, exactly.
Prolific.
Yeah. If you could go back and relive one musical moment from your career, what would it be?
Oh, we did. What's that festival called in Brittany? Le Rue de Rock. Big festival in France. Well, I'd say big. I don't think it's actually that big, like capacity wise, but it's like a very renowned festival. And it's in this old sort of. I think it's like Napoleonic era, sort of like fort, like an old fort, and the site's actually in like a place where they did like formation sort of drilling and stuff like that. And so basically it's one stage one end, one stage the other, and it's staggered all day. So like it's everything finishes, everyone turns around, goes to the next place. And I think before us was the day before was like I think Idols, Fontaines, stuff like that, like all friends of ours, but yeah, like much bigger bands than what we were at that point for sure. I mean, they're still way bigger now, but like that felt really big to us. And then I think it was Hot Chip played on the stage before us whilst we were line checking, and we were just like, "There's going to be no one here for when we play because like no one's going to have heard of us, like really." But then it was just like it literally was that thing. Everyone just turned around and it was like a full, huge fucking crowd, and that was one of those like first kind of like, oh, this is surprisingly really good.
I remember we played at the Lock Tavern in Camden upstairs, and we were playing, and then we went into the bar afterwards, and Ray Winston said, "Nice one, boys. You sound like a mix between the Clash and the Jam. I like it." So I'll go back to them.
Guys, Reason Enough is out now. So is there anything you'd like to mention before we wrap up? Can you tell the listeners where they can get the album online?
Just, usual places. If you can order it through an independent record store, I would prefer you do that. But I think it's pretty much available anywhere.
Yeah, we've done a Dinked edition, which I think is actually sold out. But they were doing the way those guys work is there's a bunch of different independent stores that they work with and sell via there, and you get an extra it's like an inlay and a signed inlay and a poster and all that kind of stuff and lyric
gubbins.
And I'm pretty sure they've all sold out now. But they were, because there was like 10 copies left as of last week. There may be some out there. Who knows?
Well, guys, that's me done. I really enjoyed it. Thanks very much for coming on.
A pleasure. Thank you very much.
I really enjoyed the album, and hopefully you can get over to Ireland at some stage. Yeah,
absolutely. We're playing a show. We're only doing one show over there on this tour, which is in Dublin on the Soundhouse. But yeah, nothing elsewhere, unfortunately, this time. But I'm sure we'll be back again with this record cycle anyway.
Belfast is 2 hours up the road.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to put a Belfast show in this tour, but I was vetoed by the overlords.
It happens all the time. Every band just goes to Dublin and they forget Belfast is 2 hours up the road and there's plenty of great venues. Don't get me wrong, there's many bands come, but there's some bands just do Dublin.
Yeah.
Where was it? We've played Belfast. We played with Idols in Belfast. I can't remember what it was. What event?
Limelight, possibly the Limelight.
Belfast Music Hall,
looking place, like an old theatre.
Belfast Music Hall. I think it was what it was called.
Empire.
Sorry, yes, that's the one. Yes,
that's it. Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
That was a cool show.
Well, guys, thank you very much. Thanks for coming on. Good luck with the album and the live shows.
Perfect.
Yeah, nice one, man. Thanks, Mark.
Nice one, Mark.
Take it easy.
Cheers, mate.
Ta-da.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye.